Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. It may be the understatement of the decade to say that The Young and the Restless has put Sharon through the ringer. First Ian and crazy Aunt Jordan messed with her bipolar medication, which left her seeing visions of late tormentor Cameron. Then the tag team framed her for Heather's murder. Then they also framed her for an attempt on Phyllis' life and chained her in the sewer of doom. Now, woo! Jordan has sipped her last cup of tea, and Ian is headed for his last stand. What's on the other side for Sharon? The show wants us to believe that it's a reunion with Nick. The powers that be have laid it on thick throughout Sharon's travails, having her make out with visions of her ex, and even allowing him to give her the strength to rise like a phoenix out of that damn sewer. But perhaps Young and Restless is going to pull a fast one on us. Suppose it's led us to expect a chic reunion, when in fact, it's about to reintroduce into her life another man from her past. Dylan. It's been 8 years since Sharon's husband left her to enter the witness protection program. In that time, maybe the danger has passed and it's now safe for him to return to the woman he never stopped loving. With former portrayer Steve Burton now back on General Hospital as Jason, of course, he couldn't reprise the role. But there is a plethora of other actors who could step in as a recast. Greg Vaughn, currently off Days of Lives as Eric, would make a terrific Dylan. Never mind that he once played Young and Restless Diego. That was an eternity ago. Ryan Pavey, ex-Nathan, General Hospital, has hinted that he's considering a daytime comeback, and we can't fathom why Cody Ryan McLaughlin, ex-Shiloh, General Hospital, hasn't been snapped up by another soap already. Are you hoping for a chic reunion, or would you rather get Dylan back? The air in the small mountain town of Ridgetop had a way of holding secrets. It wasn't just the towering pines that seemed to whisper among themselves, or the way the mist lingered longer than it should in the mornings. There was something about the place, a magnetic pull, a hum in the air, that made people believe anything was possible. It was the kind of place that someone could leave for years and still feel its call, tugging at their heartstrings like the soft pluck of a guitar string. Dylan Caldwell had left Ridgetop 10 years ago, with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a guitar case in hand. He'd been 19 and brimming with dreams, chasing the kind of fame that felt just out of reach, but worth every ounce of effort. For a while, it seemed like he might catch it. His songs had a soulfulness that earned him small gigs in smoky bars, and an audience that hung on to every note. But somewhere between the late nights and the endless highways, the dream had started to unravel. Now, at 29, Dylan sat in a cramped apartment in the city, staring at a worn-out notebook filled with half-written lyrics. His guitar rested against the wall, untouched for days. He'd become a shadow of the boy who had left Ridgetop, and he knew it. The calls from his mother had grown less frequent. The postcards from his childhood best friend, Sam, had stopped coming altogether. Yet the pull of Ridgetop never left him, growing stronger with each passing year. It was on a particularly gray evening, as rain streaked his apartment window, that Dylan finally decided it was time. He packed a bag, grabbed his guitar, and set out for the town he once swore he'd never return to. The road to Ridgetop wound like a lazy river through the foothills, each bend revealing glimpses of the town's familiar charm. The old gas station, with its hand-painted sign, still stood at the edge of town, and the diner's neon lights buzzed just as they had a decade ago. Dylan parked his beat-up truck outside the diner, the smell of coffee and fried food wafting through the open door as he stepped inside. Dylan turned to see Carol, the diner's owner, her hands on her hips and a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. If it isn't Dylan Caldwell, back from the big city, thought we'd never see you again. Dylan slid into a booth by the window, the familiarity of the place washing over him like a warm blanket. Carol brought over a slice of cherry pie and a steaming cup of coffee, her sharp eyes studying him. Dylan hesitated, not sure yet, figure I'd see how it feels to be back. Carol nodded knowingly. Well, some things have changed, but most of it's the same. Folks around here don't forget though. You'll see. He wasn't sure what she meant, but he had a feeling he'd find out soon enough. The next morning, Dylan found himself walking the familiar streets of Ridgetop. The hardware store still had the same creaky screen door, and the bookstore's bell chimed as he stepped inside. But it was the town's small park that drew him the most. There, on a weathered wooden stage, he played his first song in front of a crowd. He turned to see Sam, his childhood best friend, standing a few feet away. Sam looked the same, though his hair was shorter and his frame slightly broader. A grin spread across Sam's face as he walked over, pulling Dylan into a bear hug. "I can't believe it," Sam said, stepping back to study him. "You're really back." The two spent the afternoon catching up, reminiscing about their childhood adventures and the mischief they'd gotten into. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, their conversation grew more serious. Dylan sighed, staring at the fading light. "I'm not sure. Something about this place. I couldn't ignore it anymore." Sam nodded. "Ridgetop has a way of pulling you back, whether you want it to or not. But if you're here, you might as well make the most of it. You still play?" Dylan hesitated. "Not as much as I used to. Feels like the music left me somewhere along the way." Sam clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe it's time to find it again. The town's hosting a festival next weekend. You should play." "Come on," Sam urged. "You owe it to yourself. And to this town. People still talk about your music, Dylan. They miss it. They miss you." The days leading up to the festival were a blur. Dylan spent hours dusting off old songs and writing new ones, his fingers finding their way across the guitar strings with a familiarity that felt like coming home. The townspeople, curious and supportive, stopped by to offer encouragement. Even Carol dropped off a pie and a few words of wisdom. When the night of the festival arrived, the park was alive with twinkling lights and the sound of laughter. The wooden stage stood at the center, a humble platform that carried so many memories for Dylan. As he stepped onto the stage, guitar in hand, the crowd grew quiet. Faces both familiar and unfamiliar looked up at him, their eyes filled with expectation. Dylan took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling over him. "It's been a while," he began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "Coming back here. It's like finding a part of myself I thought I'd lost. This town has a way of holding on to you, and for that, I'm grateful." He strummed the first chord, the sound resonating through the crisp night air. The notes came easily, his voice carrying the stories he'd lived and the lessons he'd learned. As he played, the doubts and fears that had plagued him melted away, replaced by a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. The crowd erupted in applause as he finished, their cheers echoing through the park. Dylan looked out at the sea of faces, his heart full. For the first time in a long time, he felt whole. Ridgetop had called him back, not just to remind him of who he was, but to show him who he could still become. And as the night stretched on, Dylan knew one thing for certain: he was home.